This Waitangi has been quite a different wairua than the last I've come. And I've been coming here for nearly 30 years, people. I first came with my uncle Te Pere Curtis, whose first wife passed away this week. And my first trip here, and I was very young at that stage and I wasn't too sure what we were coming into, but it was a very taurawa kind of thing. We came early in the morning trying to catch the Ngāpuhis asleep. We ended up being treated like kings and queens when we were mihied into the whare up there. And we didn't talk about the treaty, but we talked about the relationships between us and Ngāpuhi that had been cemented prior to the treaty and which the treaty had forged. After that first visit, though, there was this period of what I would call disruption, where, I don't know if you know, a lot of you young ones won't even know who a chap called Muldoon was. I suppose Prime Minister Muldoon is somebody that the old people might know, but these young kids don't even know who Piggy Muldoon was. But back in those days, he didn't like us activists, and we couldn't even get past Paihia in those days, people. We were kind of held up at the roundabout down Paihia. Most of us were arrested because Angeline sang too loud, okay? And put onto a bus and held in a bus for a little while. So that was kind of the disruptive period for the next 5 years. We all learned to be really good singers on the bus. We all learned to be hated by the half the nation, because the only photos you saw of us were with us in handcuffs going into the buses. I bet you many of you didn't know that most of us had economic degrees and legal degrees and everything else. All they'd say is that, geez, that girl, where does she come from? She's out of it, you know. This is the stuff that was going on for us. Then, of course, the treaty became the thing to do in the 1980s, and that was largely because of my heroes and heroines, and I want to mention a few today. The late Tom Te Maro, the great leader of the Kotahitanga movement, a Ngāti Porou orator who I don't think has been equalled at all in my generation. A man who brought up here every year the importance of us standing united as the united tribes and peoples of Aotearoa, New Zealand, to protect the things that we importantly hold. My next heroine was the late Eva Rickard. Yeah. Now, all of you know that finger from Eva. You got the finger, boy, you better watch out. That's worse than going to jail, okay? And she used to point her finger on this marae and every other marae at any Pākehā who dared to deny her the right to stand and to uphold the issues that are so important to her. And Eva taught me one thing, is that it's actually your own people that are the worst to you. It's not the Pākehā. It's when you're standing up to protests, it's your own people that want to hide you because they're embarrassed by the things that you say. But she always used to tell me, you have the courage of the convictions of your belief and the understanding of the historical rightness of what you say. And no matter what your people do to you, you stand with mana, and you stand proudly, and you hold steadfast to the treaty. I want to talk about another woman who is quite different to Eva. She was Miss New Zealand in her time, but she was also one of the greatest intellectual minds that I've ever had the privilege of meeting, and that's the late Dame Mira Sazi. She was one of the first presidents of the Māori Women's Welfare League, but she also took the treaty to the United Nations a long time ago with the Labour government, and she fought bravely in the United Nations for the human rights of women and children to be recognised in Indigenous covenants. She took the treaty from domestic law, actually from Muri Whenua where she hails, right through all the courts of this land, and she took it to the United Nations to ensure that the treaty was given fortitude in that heart. Another man who I cannot actually go past is the late Sir James Henare. Sir James' understanding of treaty jurisprudence is greater than any Supreme Court judge or any other lawyer I've ever presented submissions with. His understanding was born from a wānanga of Ngāpuhi, but was also born from actually having to fight for treaty rights in a period when the assimilation of Māori and the fact that there was policy actively promoting us to be a dying race was things that he was working against. He was a great man and he was a great person here at Waitangi every year that I would listen to hours for, telling us about the history of what was happening here at Taurangatira. The last person I want to talk about, and there are many, many that I've overlooked, like Wera Hauraki, is Maturata. Matiu died as a pauper on the side of the road after we'd done a case for him in the Privy Council about fisheries rights. Matiu was somebody who went out on his own, a bit like Hone Harawira did, when he felt that party politics was actually undermining Māori rights. Matiu Rata put his neck on the line for unions, put his neck on the lines for those that were poor, ensured that the tenants of the Ratana church that he was actually grown up with weren't just lip service, but there was real housing policy for the poor, for widows, for those that were impoverished. Matiu Rata didn't like it when people in the Labour Party tried to denigrate the treaty and privatise the assets, so he set up his own party of independence. And he linked all of the beginnings of his discussions to the sacred document that we've come here today to honour and to remember and to remind those that would dishonour and forget that the constitutional future of this country is forged from that foundation stone. I want to go from that period of the 80s to what we've now come to in the 90s, and that's the corporatism of the treaty. How it's now becoming something bought and sold, so that the iwi leaders actually go and have a discussion about Te Treaty, not here at Taurangatira, but in some flash hotel down at Paihia, where most of us aren't invited to. And we hear on the television that they're talking about water rights, they're talking about money, they're talking about how they can make more money. We're hearing that they're talking about how you can do away with the tribe and create a corporate entity. All of those discussions aren't being held like this in an open way on a marae, but held behind closed doors for the benefit of Honeki and his friends and the odd brown politician that may get an invitation into that forum. Now that corporatism of the treaty is as dangerous as the invasion that I talked about in Maunga Pohatu. At least there the weapons were guns of mass destruction. You saw the bullets, you know they came with their soldiers and they came with the purpose of breaking down Māori authority. But the corporatism of the 1990s and more recent times is about the destruction of our values. And that's what our kuia and our lady here just talked about. It's about substitution of mana for money. It's about telling people that you can manage your treaty rights by going into a corporate arrangement with Mr. Fletcher or Mr. Fontira or whoever is the latest Mr., because there's very few Mrs. in this corporate world, okay? They normally are Mr. somebody. And that you can get your extra pūtea coming from the shares of that Mr. But my problem is who's actually seen the trickle down from these corporate entities? How much money has actually flowed through to the marae? I actually go around a lot of our marae and I actually say, oh, I hear that Tainui's got 800 million. Have they done all the toilets up on all their maraes yet? Have they actually spent time making sure that all the kitchens in the maraes have the flash cooking facilities that everyone else has? Or have they just decided that they're going to give marae grants of about 50,000 a year, which we know isn't even enough to buy a new stove these days? You know, these are the questions that you have to start pondering. So we've gone into this corporatism or the corporatization of the treaty. And now I want to talk to the young ones. So that's meant the treaty doesn't mean much to you. So you've become the generation, what I call the Coca-Colanization generation. You've been colonized by the Coca-Cola that you drink, by all of the t-shirts that you wear from Nike, you know about let's just do it, brothers, let's just do it. You know more about who plays for NBA than who actually signed the treaty. You know more about where you get your basketball boots from than you actually understand about the fact that your ancestor fought and died on a mountain to